Good morning. Bonjour à tous. Happy Almost Canada Day to all our fellow Canadians, and a big shout out to Team Canada in the World Cup. Canadians were shocked and offended when it was announced that Kristi Noem had been appointed to the board of a Vancouver-listed mining company. Kristi Noem's horrific human rights abuses as head of Homeland Security raises serious questions about why NovaRed Mining brought her on as the face of their British Columbia exploration venture. Kristi Noem represents a clear threat to Canada's security and our economic independence. Copper is a strategic and key mineral that will be vital in Canada's diversification strategy to free us from the grip of the United States. Her presence in this sector raises too many red flags to be ignored. Kristi Noem has displayed her contempt for our sovereignty time and time again. She's targeted our nation. She lied about us on multiple occasions and falsely claimed that we represent a serious threat to the American people, all with the deliberate intention of undermining trust with our number one trading partner. Canadians have not forgotten her deplorable stunt at the Haskell Library on the Vermont-Canadian border, where she insulted our sovereignty and claimed that we were not a real nation. And then she lied in stating that this symbol of longstanding friendship between our two countries was a center for international drug smuggling. This is appalling behavior, but I mean, what can you expect from a woman who brags about shooting puppies? The issue of copper, though, is key. Donald Trump has claimed that copper from Canada represents a national security threat to the United States. A national security threat. That's what you say about narco gangs and terrorism. But he identified our strategic minerals as a national security threat. And he made this statement as he was appointing Kristi Noem as his envoy to the so-called Shield of the Americas. So Kristi Noem has been given quasi-diplomatic status by Donald Trump on a military political coalition of right-wing states offering intelligence support to the Trump agenda. Canada is not part of this coalition. But now Kristi Noem has been brought in as a strategic advisor by a company that is stacking its board with U.S. military connections. What's going on here? Are we to assume that her role in this Canadian copper venture is a side hustle, separate and apart from her work as Donald Trump's envoy on ensuring American dominance in the hemisphere? Our Prime Minister rightly sees copper and other critical minerals as key to building stronger economic ties with our democratic allies in Europe. This strategy is in open defiance of Trump's Dunroe doctrine that insists that Canada must be a weak vassal state serving American interests. But for Canada to bring new copper mines into production, it requires careful and respectful negotiations with the First Nations in British Columbia. Now, I've spoken with a number of people in the industry who are rightly concerned that a toxic personality like Kristi Noem could easily throw off the trust and seriously impact development of new projects. In her time as governor of South Dakota, her toxic relations with Indigenous people was so bad that it resulted her from being banned from all of their homelands. And she is going to be the one involved in moving forward copper mining on Indigenous territories in Canada. This is ridiculous. NovaRed is a company whose chief executive lives in Nevada. The company has populated its advisory board with a sequence of high-profile United States hires, a retired U.S. Army colonel with intelligence experience in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia, a retired U.S. Navy commander who conducted Cold War classified air reconnaissance and Gulf War combat support. They then brought in Kristi Noem with her toxic reputation as a key Trump loyalist. And then the company doubled down this past week on their MAGA focus by hiring Katie Zachariah, who describes herself as a Trumpette and an advisor to Donald Trump's Truth Social. And yet, because they've obtained a post office box in Canada, they are now eligible for a huge array of Canadian tax credits. This company raises multiple red flags. And questions must be asked about their stand on the corporate ESG. That's the environmental, social, and governance, which is key for any mining company to reassure investors it can deal with complex issues like First Nations, like environment, and like human rights. Wow. Kristi Noem's human rights record should have made her an anathema to any corporation looking to establish a credible reputation in Canada. Amnesty International has done a major investigation into the torture and abuse at Alligator Alcatraz, where Kristi Noem posted photos of herself standing in front of the cages. Amnesty documented, quote, a deliberate system to punish, dehumanize, and hide the suffering of people in detention. Medical neglect, torture, abuse. Over 32 people died in detention by the end of 2025 under Kristi Noem's watch. Kristi Noem oversaw illegal deportations of people not even convicted of crimes to El Salvadorian concentration camps. There were serious allegations over misspending when she was governor and in security. So what does she bring to the table? Human rights violations, torture, defying the federal court. And now she's setting up to do business with the natural resources of Canada. This morning, I call on Canada's government to examine the role of Kristi Noem and NovaRed Mining and what their plan is for our natural resource sector. She is an official of the Trump regime, and she's providing strategic advice to this company, so Canadians deserve to know what that means. Is she being paid? Is she receiving shares or stock options? Because I don't see on the books of NovaRed Mining that suggests that they have the finances to pay for someone like Kristi Noem. So is she being paid by the Trump regime to help advance this company? Does she have access to Canadian critical mineral data, strategy, financing that would help them? And would she be using her contacts that she developed in her time with Homeland Security? These are all questions we need to know. So I'm asking the minister responsible for innovation, science, and economic development to review NovaRed under the Investment Canada Act and determine whether or not there are any national security concerns. Or, let's just be simple, you should just ban her. What the hell is she doing in our country? And I say this because we remember that one of the first things that happened with Prime Minister Carney's watch is that they banned the Irish hip-hop group Kneecap. The reasons for banning Kneecap were arbitrary and then turned out to be false, yet the government moved ahead. So if they can ban Kneecap, why the hell would they have Kristi Noem deal with anything to do with our mineral sector? I raise these concerns as the economic threat to Canada continues. The Gordie Howe Bridge remains closed. The Trump regime continues to threaten and intimidate us. Kristi Noem's hatred of our country has been made clear. She has no business being involved in anything to do with our country. Je suis ici pour exiger que le gouvernement ouvre une enquête sur les liens entre Kristi Noem et la compagnie NovaRed Mining. Kristi Noem représente une menace aux intérêts du Canada. Kristi Noem a essayé de saper notre souveraineté. Kristi Noem est un émissaire de Donald Trump, mandaté pour étendre son contrôle sur les continents et le Canada. C'est essentiel pour le Canada de protéger l'exploitation des minéraux stratégiques. Et c'est simple, on doit interdire l'entrée du Canada à Kristi Noem. I will take any questions that come forward. Thank you.
Basically, without going into detail, this is a fairly controversial character even for the Trump regime. Aside from reviewing, some of this mining company and seeing us up to it, do you think it's important that the Prime Minister make, I don't think he said anything yet, a pretty clear statement that this is maybe not the type of activities that is going to give these projects that he, highlights almost every day the best chance of success when you bring in somebody like that probably would be offside with Indigenous communities and a bunch of other, just as a controversial figure in terms of wanting to smooth the way for what will take consensus on these major projects?
I think it's really important for the Prime Minister to look at the issue with Kristi Noem and copper and British Columbia in terms of our national strategic interests. These are really complex negotiations that are taking place. There is a lot of uncertainty in the mineral exploration field right now, so you have to have very good relations. And this woman has proven time and time and time again that she will do anything to undermine us. So whether or not this company even has a credible stake in the field is not the issue. The issue is that she will be part of anything that happens, and she could easily upend those negotiations. So I think the Prime Minister does need to say, when we're talking about projects moving forward, it has to be done on the basis of respect. It has to be done on the basis of trust. And it has to be done on the basis of companies who bring in people with proper human rights records. And Kristi Noem is a big fat zero on all of those.
This company knows what type of sort of politician she is and that. So what you speculated a little bit by it, if it doesn't, I'm not sure it would serve them all that well in Canada, but why may they have brought this person on board into their operations?
I'm not sure what the game plan is with NovaRed Mining. I've spent my life around mining. Penny stocks, I grew up around them. I mean, I know a ton of people in the industry. And normally when you're trying to get a venture off the ground, you keep announcing people who've got a lot of experience and who know how to build mines and who are geologists and people with a track record. You don't bring in Katie Zachariah, who's described as a Trumpette and writes these bizarre love letters to Donald Trump. That's not the kind of person you bring in, unless you're just doing a hustle in the United States, which is, hey, that's fine. But this hustle is about Canada's copper resource sector. So I'm not sure what the company's thinking. The fact that they've got serious military dudes sitting on their board, I'm not sure what that has to do with mining, but we don't know anything about this company other than the fact that they've opted to really load themselves down on the MAGA front, and it's obviously pissing people in Canada off. So there's got to be a game plan. That's why I think it needs to be reviewed. What is that game plan?
I wanted to check in with you a couple months after Avi Lewis took the helm of the federal NDP. How do you feel like the party is doing in terms of, making a bit of a comeback, particularly with working class voters?
I've seen Avi's been out a lot. It's really important. It's really good that he was in Saskatchewan meeting people. We got to rebuild where we lost. So I wish him all the best on that. It's going to be a long road rebuilding, and we lost the trust of our base. So it's going to be up to Avi and his team to get back in areas that we should never have lost and rebuilt. So I think he's been out doing a lot of work right now. So that's a good sign.
Are there any areas where that you think are particularly ripe to get that rebuild going in, especially with the backdrop of, like the auto tariffs and CUSMA negotiations and all that?
I think there's a real opportunity for the New Democrats right now. Prime Minister Carney has done extraordinary on the international stage. I don't know of a prime minister who's done nearly what he's done on the international stage, but there's so many issues on the domestic front, like this overriding the pesticide ban. That's just going to rub so many people the wrong way. There are moments where the New Democrats need to be speaking up now, particularly as we see it's the economy is not favoring people who can't afford to pay their rent. There's going to be a lot of opportunity. And again, who's speaking up for the auto jobs? Like Doug Ford's gone off for his 5-month vacation. That whole industrial belt of Ontario was hardcore NDP. That whole industrial belt is facing serious threat right now. So again, if you're going to talk about the working class, then get into working class communities and talk about their issues, because auto is key. And, I've been down the corridor. I've been talking to Unifor in Halton. I've met with Unifor in Oshawa. I met with Unifor in London and Windsor. They want a champion right now. So there's an opportunity right there.
When you were talking with them, did they have anything to say specifically about how, I know they're looking for a champion, but temperature check on how they feel about the federal NDP after the leadership race?
I think what they want to see is they want to see is any party have actually a national strategy to deal with the pressures that are coming right now. We're dealing with a very unprecedented set of circumstances. I mean, Ed Broadbent came out of Oshawa, So there are areas where we could step in, I think, and offer a vision and meet and be a voice that would rebuild trust. And it's certainly something that we need to be doing. We got to get off, we spent the last 4 years focused on our TikTok likes. We got to get back into the coffee shops. Thanks.
I had a follow-up question on that too.
What do you mean you got a follow-up question? I'm not allowing that. No, I'm walking.
It is with the NDP. I just wanted to move away from labor for a second. So what he's really endorsed, obviously, is climate change and the environment, which has kind of taken a beating in present times that they're been reduced. Plus, the Liberals have really moved away from climate change and economy. Now, what he's getting knocked in the press is saying, "Oh, these aren't the times for talking about that. That's we have to look at economic projects, and you're way out in left field, and you'll never." Is that correct, maybe, or is there I did cover the convention. I noticed there was a lot of young people there, or maybe is he actually tapping into something that is there and Canadians want to talk about, other than just the importance of economic projects?
Him being Prime Minister Carney, or
no, him being part of endorsing a very strong environmental platform.
I think people were really surprised that the Prime Minister walked back so many of the commitments, because I think I was told by everyone the Prime Minister plays 4-dimensional chess. Trust him. He's gonna make some promises to Daniel Smith, but he's gonna really establish standards that will protect us. And we've dropped all our standards. Methane is a perfect example. Methane, the idea that we have this planet killer that just keeps leaking out everywhere, and we don't have a global commitment to do that. The Prime Minister could say to Daniel Smith, "You want action? Well, this is what you've got to do." So that will come back to bite the Prime Minister, I think. I think those are mistakes that he made. He's making mistakes that he doesn't need to make. There's a lot of resource projects that are going to go ahead, that are going to have an enormous amount of social license, but we can't be dropping the regs now, not when the climate fires are burning while Europe is melting. It's not an issue that has been dropped with the Canadian people. And I meet people all the time, and many who are Liberals in that, who said, I expect that we're going to have a strong environmental policy. So I think these are areas like the Prime Minister, he comes out of banking, he comes out of the world, the world class of bankers, but he was the green banker. So he knows the economics of this. So there's huge opportunities, but huge risks if he doesn't take it.
The other question I have about that is, of course, his decision not to seek a seat. That was the first question he was asked when he came here. Obviously, the NDP has a reduced